Good evening, beautiful people. Welcome to my channel. You are listening to Dr. Eve, and I'm here to give you another conversation about developing your story. Happy Black History Month, everyone. We're so excited about celebrating you and all the ways that you enter into Black history from the very conception and the very birth, your birth, born you into history. And I want to talk a little bit about developing your story. I have been on this journey talking about preparing for your season of elevation. And one of the things that I talk a lot about when I am sharing that is the importance of telling your story, the importance of using your story as a tool to make, manage, and multiply. Oftentimes, we those of us who are in the entrepreneurial space or spaces of foundations and funders, and those of us that require us to tell our story, uh, some struggle with that concept, even when we are developing our organizations and our programs and the things that we want to um, leave behind a legacy for our children and for our community. And one of the things that people often struggle with is, how do I tell my story? And I wrote a recent memoir, kind of like a sort of a memoir, I call it, called Preparing for Your Seasons of Elevation. And one of the reasons why I wrote that book, because number one, God required me to do a self reflection, you know, in our attempts to live a whole and healthy life, we often have to reflect on the things that may be hindering us. You know, sometimes we um, are still holding things, we are still um, harboring bitterness, or we're harboring or we are have selective memory because there are things that maybe we don't want to think about. But then there are things that are beautiful about our lives, and because we don't want to reflect, we minimize the importance of our lives and our stories. Because at the very conception of your birth, you were born a star. Now, our stars, they get disrupted sometimes. They get disrupted by the things of the world. They may even get disrupted by rearing. They may get disrupted by crisis. They, just may get disrupted by even our own decisions. But what I'm here to tell you is, it is very important that we reflect on our stories. It helps us to, number one, be able to write memoirs like this about our life, to leave something for our children to reflect on when we are no longer here. That is a very real thing. I am a firm believer that leave my children the writings, leave them the truth, right? Leave them something to reflect on, something to share with with their children and their children's children, right? And that's what Black history is really all about, because we are always adding value to every day. We're adding value. So I want to share a method with you that I think might help you to be able to begin your journey in writing, reflecting on your story, and writing, beginning the writing process. Because no matter what, in this day and time, storytelling is what people is a tool that funders use. They use it and say, well, tell us a story. When I'm asking for some funds, when I was asking for funds about our youth organization, they were, tell us your story. When I was asking for funds about, the women's group, they tell us your story. So what have you been doing? How's it working? How are you measuring it? All the things. And so telling, even in this, you see here, you see here on my backdrop is pictures. There are pictures of me when I was 5. I think I was 9, maybe around, maybe around 8, 9ish. Another one when I was around about 11 or 12. Then another one when I was, around 15, maybe. And then, of course, I was an adult, or 18, not an adult, but well, yeah, an adult according to the government, but not, but yeah. So anyway, so in breaking that down, we when we are born, we're going through a process of learning. We are learning how to walk and to crawl and to walk and to eat and all the things, right? Because we don't know, these things are innate. These things are innate. Um, and more often we are, this thing is just a natural process, right? So we learn to walk, we learn to talk, we learn to write, we learn to, socialize, we just learn. We're on a journey to learning. And so in that process, there are things that occur, things that you can remember about your home life. About yesterday, I shared with you all when I opened up about this. I shared with you about what it was like growing up, being born and raised in the 70s and 60s and 70s, and during the time of the civil rights movement. And that, while I didn't understand completely in the 60s because I was born in 1963, what I did understand was emotions. I understood the emotions of my parents. I understood what was happening, could see happy. I understood the difference between happy and sad. I understood, all those human emotions. And so I understood, you know, watching black and white TV when, you know, the giants, like Martin Luther King and those people were dying, by assassination. And they're all stories, right? I shared that yesterday when I shared my first story with you. But today I want you to begin a process. I'm going to give you some steps that I want you to begin to think about taking so that you can begin to build, a basic timeline of to help you with your story. So just as I have here these pictures of me 5, 8, minus 11, maybe 13, 16, and grown, you can do the same. So you think about you want when you're thinking about your story, you can start by creating a timeline of your life. You can list the years of your life in increments, just as I have done with these pictures. I love to use pictures. It gives me more to think about rather than um, just writing, randomly, right? I get to look at that girl and I get to, connect with her emotions and I get to connect with what was happening in that time and all those stories that I was living, right? Living in. So this helped me to develop a timeline. And one of the things that you can do is maybe just write one short sentence about each one of those photos, not a whole lot. Describe, maybe a major event that happened in each year of your life. So when you think about it year 1 to 5, year 6 to 10, maybe 11 to 15, 16 to 20. And then, of course, you continue to list those years, but we're talking about your formative year. We're talking about those beginning years of your life, but you can do this up and throughout till till you where you are now, that age, in that age of becoming, in that age of becoming. So you want to write again, do it in increments of 5, and write one short sentence that describes a major event that happened in each year. And then fill in any major events in the gaps, like when you moved, moves, births, deaths. And if any questions, you can always refer back to, your timeline. So you want to write out this timeline and these events, right? Another thing that helps is, you know, uh, your ancestry. Who are you? Where did your ancestry begin? I like to always say that my ancestry began with the Father, because of all the things that are going on in the world. I really like to look at the beginning, up for us all, because then I can kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what we're dealing with today. And so when I think about my origin, I always think about, the Father who created everything, and who even knew my parents before they were in their mother's womb, right? And so, and his original intent for us. And that helps me to stay on course when I run into a bump in the road, when I think about events or major events or moves or crises or things that happen in my story. And so, yeah, we will talk a little bit more about, that ancestral origin on tomorrow. I wanted to just come and share with you. If you are a son, if you are a daughter, there are just many seasons to your life, this life, your life of becoming. So take some time, and reflect on your Black history moments, right? Because you are a part of history. You are Black history. So let us begin to, write our own memoirs, begin to, it's also a beautiful way to begin the healing process, because one of my major goals in life is to leave a legacy that is free of adverse lived experiences. Because just being born a woman of color, you know, was we were faced with trauma from the very beginning. And even just being born, womb trauma is real. So that's a whole nother story. Like, we are all born, and birthing is a process. It is a traumatic process. And people always say, there are some who say, well, I don't have any trauma in my life. Well, trauma began when the day you were born, because you had to travel through some things to get here, while it was beautiful on the other side. It's hard for mommy and baby when we are in the birthing process. So I just wanted to come here and share with you all to begin your process, and to tell you how important you are in history, and for you to begin to write your memoir. Begin your process. And if you are interested in learning how to, and need support and would like to be in a supportive environment, just click below. Click, ready below. Click um, storytelling below. Storytelling. Let's say storytelling. Write storytelling in the comments, and we will invite you to a community where we're working on our processes. Why? Because number one, we want to always be in a place of healing, and in a place of well-being throughout our entire life, because we know that to be born in this world comes with trauma, just period. Even if we deal with it through our friends or um, our just we're going to trauma is crisis is everywhere. This is the world where crisis exists. So anyway, I am Dr. Eve, and you are listening to Dr. Eve here on my channel, where I um, believe in touching one life that will touch millions. And so I'm excited to be used by the Father to share with you on your journey to becoming. Peace and blessings to you all. Hope you have the most amazing evening. And whatever you do, don't let anyone get in the way on your journey to becoming. Peace and blessings.